I've met a lot of farmers in my career. I don't think anybody has done more for North Texas than Amanda. I will argue with anybody all day long about that, but I could go on and on. But there's plenty of videos that you can watch on YouTube. So if you haven't subscribed, please check on that. One of my favorite videos that we've ever done is Amanda's telling of the history of the Dallas Farmers Market, which gives you a lot of insights to farmers markets in general. So please check that out and check out all the other things that we've done over the years. I'm going to get out of the way because I think she's got a lot to say. Amanda, thank you.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks for letting me come and see the new studio and do a workshop here. And I brought flowers and some other flowers that came, these beautiful LA hybrid lilies from Thomas Family Flowers out of Klondike, Texas, if you know where that is, because you guys know these smaller towns. And so she sells these at, she sells bouquets at Paris Grocery, and I saw them on her Instagram, and we have a flower network, so I was like, hey, I'm going to be in Paris, could you deliver them there, and then stay for the workshop. So great to have Emily here. She's here, right? Raise your hand there. Yep. So that's how we all come together. So I'm going to run through a little talk because I feel like it's real important to let you know about locally grown flowers. We talk a lot about food and farmers, and there is a whole nother piece to the agriculture, and that is flowers. And the first workshop I went to, it was the Association of Specially Cut Flower Growers. And I was sitting there next to two ladies from California, and I'm like, I'm just really struggling because, you know, vegetables are important, food is important, and to grow flowers. They turned to me like Californian and said, flowers are food for the soul. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, now I'm on. Okay, so I have to keep always telling that story because it feels like a lot of people don't understand how flowers can be agriculture. And they're USDA specialty crop. I like to be called a flower grower, but everybody else is talking about flower farmers, so I kind of had to switch that up a little bit. So how did I get started? Everybody wants to know, how did you get started? And I don't know how I got started. It was a dream. When I was getting out of college, my grandparents were getting out of their farmhouse, and that's their farm in Ohio. And their last name is Bishop. That's my mother's maiden name. And they called it Bishop Hill. So that's how I came about Bishop Hill. And then the front was about 2 acres. And they were moving out of their house. I said I would love to go live in their house and grow flowers on the front 2 acres. It was a 300-acre farm, but I only wanted the 2 acres. And I would grow, and in my mind, I was thinking lilies. And I would drive them into Columbus and sell them to the restaurants to put on the tables. Those chefs needed better flowers on their tables than plastic type flowers that you saw in the 70s. But didn't do that. Of course, I had an education degree. A woman in the 70s going to an agriculture community with a bunch of men, I just was like, I can't do that. I don't have the ability to do that. But since my degree was education, I went into teaching and saw a garden at the school I was teaching. It was covered with raspberries and said, we're going to grow and we're going to take these kids out in the garden. And I started writing curriculum for school gardens, and that was 1978. But I kept the dream of flowers in my mind. So I got into growing school gardens, community gardens. Founded several community gardens in Coppell, and I then started working for the city. It was great because I had the waste contract. Well, we need compost. So I started all these compost classes, and then they fell into the community garden. It all just kind of came together. And then people kept coming to the community garden wanting to buy produce. And that was 1998, and we should have a farmer's market in Coppell. And so started the Coppell Farmers Market, and that was the first suburban. There was the Dallas Farmers Market, and then Cowtown in Fort Worth, and then we started the next phase, which all the farmers markets came to us and said, how did you do that? And they took our, guidelines, and there it went. So doing farmers markets, we vetted a lot of farms. And then also I went to the Dallas Farmers Market to take it from public to private. And I visited probably over 200 farms. When I was going to a farm, of course, I'm looking at what's your irrigation like? And so in my mind, I'm going to someday grow these cut flowers. And I was reading and thinking about it all that time. And there, I retired, and then here I am. 7 years, this is my 7th year of growing cut flowers, and I have a 4th acre. That is in a property in Old Town Coppell. It's a historic area. I bought the property in '07, and the reason I bought it is because the people who homestead there, the parishes, he gardened, and he had rabbits and chickens, and he had it since the late 40s, and I felt like that soil was going to be really good. And I always had this, it's a great feeling because when you're in the urban, we're 10 minutes from DFW Airport. But when you come into this area, it's just like, whoo, you just feel, it feels really great. So you got to have flowers on it. So I bought the property and said, I'm going to grow cut flowers. That's what I do. I have some values, and the reason I want to cover these values, because I really believe when you start something, if you have a really good core of beliefs, and then you stick by those, then you can be successful. I also wanted to show you these because I feel like there's a lot of flower farmers and a lot of small farmers and market gardener type farmers that are also following these values, which are different than commodity big ag type farms. And that is, you can do a lot on a small scale, but high production, and keep it tight, keep it efficient. And also, all of the practices are more sustainable. We used to call it environmental, but now it's sustainable, but there's still Earth Day, coming up a couple days. And so, or we say organic methods. And when I was doing the community gardens, my main focus with compost and teaching at the community garden was to teach people organic methods because of what everybody's putting on their lawns. And I always said, and there's a byproduct, it's food. I mean, how weird is that? But it was very seasonal, and a lot of growers, when we started the market, nobody thought they could grow through the winter. Everybody was like, oh, we end in September, that's the end of tomatoes. We're done. It just didn't make sense that people didn't eat a lot of greens. I mean, now they do. So it can be seasonal, but I grow year-round. I grow only field. I have low tunnels in the winter, only about 5 crops. And then there's the hoop house growers, like Bootstrap Farmer has some beautiful hoop houses. I don't have one because I showed it to the economic development, a picture, and she's like, no. Low tunnels were fine, but go any bigger, that was a big no. And I've done everything by hand. I don't have any employees. I've done volunteers, employees. I worked myself out of the field, been at the computer, and I'm like, this is my thing. I want to have my hands in the dirt. And now I'm beginning to question that as I approach 70. And I got a BCS. So, I was excited. That BCS is going to, that's the hand tractor. It's going to make it easier for me to break new ground and actually build more permanent beds. And so I'm very excited about that. And then I don't really have to do everything by hand. And I also have a belief that I sell what I grow. I don't bring in wholesale flowers. I don't touch them. I do events sometimes, and I really do not do an event if somebody comes with their Pinterest boards and wants this in January. I'm like, no, we can't. No, don't have any flowers. We have a few anemones, which limits me, but it also sets the stage for those who are doing the right thing, and that is trying to support local. And that's, my thing about farmers markets too. That farmer needs to be growing what they're selling, and not going to a wholesaler and buying and repackaging and acting like they're a farm. And it's year round, which I always talked about. So we'll go to the next slide, and I'm going to give you a little bit of maybe too much statistics, but I just feel like you just need to know about this. American grown or domestic grown cut flowers are on the rise. Probably in the 70s was coming to the end of the big carnation growers, into the 80s. And this is about the same time corporations were taking over farms, and then we had the real big farm crisis. And that, with the trade industry and Ecuador and the Colombia, you grow great poppies, so let's grow flowers. We'll give you a free ride bringing them to the United States. And when that happened, because labor's cheap, and it just exploded, and they're on the equator. So you talk about full sun, that's full sun. And those are beautiful flowers. They are heavily chemical use to make them grow, a lot of water, and people that are growing flowers in the United States cannot match that, because 80% of the flowers that you see in the grocery stores all over, at weddings, 80% of flowers are shipped in, and they're global flowers. However, that 20% are grown in the United States, and of that 20%, okay, so if you take that 20% and say 70% of the 20% are grown in California, Washington, and Oregon. Not Texas. So, and the Northeast. So Texas has just kind of been like is there any flower growers? And there, in 2014, when I went to the Association of Specially Cut Flower Grower meeting, I was like, where are the flower growers from Texas? They were from all over the United States. And there was one person I knew that grew flowers in North Texas. And that was Cynthia Alexander of Quarry Farm. She was out of McKinney. And she only grew for a couple of years, but that was in 2014. 2017, when I started full-time putting Bishop Hill Farm Flowers together, I knew 3 other flower farmers. And recently, since then, we've had the pandemic. And that was the start. I mean, a lot of people wanted to grow. And that was just like, oh, let's buy seeds, let's grow, or we're going to have a garden. And I want to grow flowers. So 2 things were happening. Florette on the up by north of Seattle. Florette flowers became very big. Her social media popped, and she put out a lot of good pictures. And it became like, I want to be a flower farmer, because that is beautiful. Those dahlias are amazing. Well, yeah, you can throw them out there and they grow. So that happened. But the pandemic happened. A lot more people had time to research it and start growing. And on top of that, when the ports were closed, none of those 80% of those flowers could come into the United States. They were turning the boats around or not even shipping them. They dumped all the flowers in Holland, in South America, and Africa. So during that time, the florists didn't have weddings, but they were trying to switcheroo and do a pivot and start doing home deliveries, or, they were just like, we need flowers. And they started looking around, where are the local flowers? And they started calling around. Well, there was only about 5 of us growing, and we were like, We have only grown this many because this is our farmer's market, or this is, very small. But it became more aware on people's radar that there are flowers that are grown locally. And so that was the awakening. And actually, I listened to a economist that looked at just domestic grown flowers, and it spikes. It spikes 20, 21, 22, and then it's dropping back down. And they say it will go back to 2019, which is okay. But that was the real spike. And so did they increase in Texas? Well, I like to build community. I like to gather people. And so I just started making email list of those that I saw on Instagram, or somebody else knew somebody, and I would see them at a farmer's market. And that list has grown over the years. Right now we have 50 in North Texas that are growing cut flowers on the list. And those are the ones that I have on the list. We do a monthly meeting on Zoom, or we meet at each other's farms. It's great. It's a great network, and all we do is talk flowers and help each other. And that's how I know Emily and others. We could buy bulk together. We were just talking about some problem that we had, something that's very expensive. It comes in a big bag, but we're not going to use that much. Well, why don't we all go together, buy the bag, and split it up? So what's next? I don't know. It's going to be great. And of course, you guys know, when you buy locally, you support the local economy, because that keeps the money there. And it's also like for the half acre to acre that I have in historic Coppell, all around it, they've now zoned it commercial, and all around it next door is three mixed-use commercial properties. 5 more are going in across the street. It's like I'm holding out. I'm on a creek. I'm holding out, and using the land in a way that is going to make it improved. And of course, it's just there is a lot of research about flowers that they make you feel good, because they're nature. I mean, you know that. You go out in nature, you hug a tree. Well, maybe not hug a tree. Sorry, Hannah. She's not going to go. What my main thing was, let me get flowers out there so people's eye will be attracted to nature. And that's what flowers are. They are the true, come on in, pollinators. Well, they've got us too, because our eyes go there and go, wow, and look at that. And I started drying flowers. And the reason I started drying flowers because I wanted a no-waste farm. And I was like, I'm not going to throw these flowers out, or I've got early in the week when I don't have sales, but you have to keep cutting these flowers. And so started drying them and realized there is such a trend for dried flowers. And what I like about dried flowers is they stay around and you have a long time to look at them, and they're not as fleeting. But if you're under 35 years old, you love dried flowers. I'm at a booth. I am like amazed how these high school kids are coming by and buying. I have fresh and dried, and they'll just like beeline to the dried. I'm like, what's with that dried? So I really started thinking about it. I think it's because they are more sustainable. They're easy to care for because you don't have to do anything. You don't have to put water on them or check them, and they last a long time. Good for my money. And they have the Instagram filter that is built in, because they have that muted look. The way they look, it just says, yeah. So I'm going to keep drying, and that's why a lot of my flowers end up looking like, I dry a lot of status. I dry a lot of straw flowers because I can dry those later. So that's what I do. Let's see if I have another slide. Oh, I do. Where do you find local flowers? and I say local flowers, but when you say local flowers, people think of the local florist. So if you search on Google local flowers, you're going to get all the florists that are local to you. So you can't search local flowers. You have to go locally grown flowers. And really, if you want to do that, you just kind of search, keep going into social media or Instagram. Instagram is the perfect social media for flowers because the pictures, I mean, you don't want to do anything but take pictures of flowers. But there are some directories. There's one, localflowers.org, and that comes from the Association of Specially Cut Flower Growers that I was telling you about. That's the organization. And then there's also Florette, who I was telling you about. She has a directory, and she calls it the Collective. So you can look at that and find them. Local Harvest is another. You're probably on Local Harvest at Paris Natural, but Local Harvest, a lot of flower farmers haven't put their information out there. And so the other thing is to go to farmers markets. I bet every farmers market now almost has somebody growing flowers, or they're bringing flowers, at least in the summer, sunflowers and zinnias. And then you can, a lot of flower farmers are using coffee shops or as pop-ups, gift shops, Paris Grocery, like Emily's doing. Those tend to be where you can find flowers. And then also the flowers are kind of, a lot of flower farmers are doing like a CSA, Community Supported Agriculture, but they call it more like a subscription. So you're getting a subscription and picking them up, or they deliver them to you. How convenient. I delivered some flowers this morning in the rain, yeah. And then there's flower farmers that also do wholesale. So if you're a florist and you want to use local flowers, because more brides are saying, I want some local flowers. And they're like, oh, I'm a florist, but I don't really know where they are. There's a new program called Rooted Flowers, or Rooted Flower. It's either Rooted Flowers or Rooted Farmer. I'm getting mixed up. So that website is, a lot of flower collectives are on it, but here in Texas, there's not that many. Rooted Flowers, I think it's Rooted Flowers. They came down, visited several of the flower farmers, came to my farm, and we just don't feel like we have the capacity yet to beef that up to sell to florists. But there's 3 or 4 of the flower growers in Dallas that only grow for florists. And they're doing pretty well, and I think that's going to increase. There you go. Questions about everything I've talked about, because I'm going to switch gears on you. All right, so how do you know what's local? You know, like I'm at a farmer's market, and I don't know about that. This is a list of summer flowers, and I sent Nick a Google sheet. Oh, it's on the back. It's on the back there. So when I say you can grow year-round, some you start in the fall, which is September, October, and some you start in the summer. And right now, it's the summer flowers. So those are the flowers you would find at farmers markets. I didn't put every flower there is. And then there's the cool season flowers. So if you're a farmer or you have a garden and you are putting in your kale and your broccoli and your Brussels sprouts, you could also do the cool flowers at that time in the fall. The thing that these need is they need to freeze to flower. So they need that cool time so that they will flower. If you try to plant those flowers in February or March, saying, I'll just get a little kick on it and they'll get a few hours, it doesn't work that way. They have to go through a cold spell. But some of them can't handle, like when we had the 11-degree. So that's the low tunnel comes into play at that point. The thing I didn't put on there is the anemones and ranunculus or bulbs, which those, if you grow tulips or daffodils, you put those in the fall. Same with ranunculus and anemones. So that's kind of what you would expect. And then just so you know, if you have a garden and you want to start harvesting flowers, or you went to a friend's house, or you are on the side of the road, make sure everything's clean. So what holds these flowers really well is that everything has to be clean. I have to have a really clean bucket, and that means I bleach rinse them, or use a vinegar rinse. And when I use my clippers, I'm going to clean those really well. Don't have my clippers right there. And so cleanliness is everything, because bacteria grows very quickly. And the other thing is they have to be cut at the right stage. It's really weird about flowers because not all of them are the same. So eventually you will learn it, but if you want to, you can go to Johnny's on your phone, Johnny's Select Seeds, and go to growing information on any flower, and it will tell you when to harvest it. And it will say, harvest yarrow when it's full and it's not limp. So you're just looking at it like the poppies. I'm harvesting those when they're when they're barely coming out of their bud, and it's first thing in the morning before the bees are after them. But I'll say that in the growing information. And then also you strip all the leaves so that the leaves aren't in the water. So you're always trying to keep the leaves out of the water, because they start dying first and then they make more bacteria. And you have to have water in your containers if you're going to cut the flowers and get it there. I'm getting kind of lazy, and I'm not taking all my buckets out into the field, and I'm like just carrying a bunch of flowers that aren't in buckets, and I'm like, I really should be doing this. When it gets really hot, then I'll take the buckets out in the field and try to keep them in the shade. And then for all those cool season flowers, they have to stay cool. They like it cool. So if somebody gets some, if you get flowers and then you put them over there in the heater vents blowing on them all winter, or in the winter, they won't hold as long as if you had them like in another room or away from a fireplace or some heat source. I use a cooler to store overnight for flowers, for all these flowers. But when we move into summer, if that's out there at 104 degrees, you can be in my air conditioner at 80 degrees. Yeah, I know, I keep it pretty warm in the house. My kids are over there going, yeah, she does. So really, I don't use my cooler at all in the summer. Basil doesn't like it, zinnias doesn't like it, and I don't hold things long. I'm not trying to do a wedding in 3 weeks and I need to hold these flowers. I do a farmer's market, I do a coffee shop. Sometimes I take them to harvest on the square in McKinney. They buy my flowers a lot. And then also hydration is important. Some things just don't do well unless they sit for like 24 hours in water, and then they will get hydrated by that time. So you got to kind of learn those pieces. A lot of the greens. So let's go. My thing with produce is there's a cold chain. The chain, once they're cooled, you got to keep that chain going. So I would imagine flowers are the same. When they're cool, they need to stay cool. Get them back in a cooler. These were all in the cooler overnight. Yesterday I was like, it's going to be raining in the morning. I'm not going to go out there. And besides that, they really do hold up better. So I'm just going to show you some things. Oh, that's on your handout, so we'll just flip to the next one. So let's talk about arranging. I'm not a florist. And I'm always saying to people, I'm a grower. But I also, because I'm around plants a lot, I have a feel of what nature looks like, and I have this an idea of what I like. And so I say, we're going to make an arrangement tonight. And when you make your arrangement, I would like you to be yourself and say, this is mine, and that's going to be how I want to create it. I'm not going to look at how I'm doing it or my neighbor's doing it. It's going to be yours. And that's why I brought a selection of vases that are all different, so your personalities can come out in it. And also, there's a lot of flowers here, and you can kind of decide how you want to do it. But I'm going to give you some bases. And so here on the slide, it's like what draws your eye to the arrangement. So you're really making the arrangement for yourself. You know, I make all my bouquets different, and I take them to market. One I don't like very much, one I love. But when somebody else comes up, they love the one that I was like, oh, that one. It's all a personal opinion, you know, it's all personal. So do what feels right for you. And then just let yourself have another glass of wine, get your creative juices flowing, and be slow about it. Be intentional, because if you just like, bing, 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 I gotta go, it will look like that you did that. But if you start looking at it in different ways and kind of turning it, you'll get the feel of, this is coming together nice. In the beginning, it doesn't look good, but at the end, you'll walk away and then look back at it and go, oh my, I did that? So there you go. It should be at least 1 to 2 times, I like 1.5 times higher than your vase. So you look at your vase, say I'm going to go a little bit higher. But when you're growing flowers, you don't really have choice with how long the stems are, because we're field grown, and it depends on how that wind was 20 mile an hour the other day. And then the other thing is there's a lot of information about color, shape, texture, you know, just like art. Remember the art classes? So it's hard with the flowers that I grow, because I grow a lot of colors because I'm selling at market and I want to change it up for all those people who like red or they like something that's more pink. And so I have a big selection here, and you'll just have to kind of put it together the way you think. The thing that I always start with, and so I'm just going to show you, there's what we call the greenery. And I like to use greenery and because of the textures of it, but also, to me, the greenery will set off the flowers. If you have all the same kind of flowers, you don't see each individual flower. But when you put some greenery with it, and then you put the flowers in, you can see them, and it's like a much feels good. This is blue plorium, and it is kind of a greenish gold. And then I have this, of course I've rubber banded them. This is bells of Ireland, and they look like little bells. I thought I had more of those. So what you're going to do is you want to start in your vase. You want to start in your vase with some of the greenery. And I use it as the structure of your arrangement. And I'm going to run over here real quick. I'm not hooked into anything. You know, I use a lot of this. This is silver leaf Eliangus. It's a big shrub. I found it down by the creek. So I just go down there and cut off of it. And this would be a good thing to put because it's very strong. So if you put this in with some blue plorium, and I would pull off these leaves, because remember, no leaves in the water, so I'm going to be pulling them off. And I would be putting this into my vase like this, so it becomes like a structure, and then you can start adding your flowers into it. So you've got your greenery, and you can pick all different, whatever you want. I wouldn't mix it up too much. I also have some bee balm, which is like almost an herb that comes back, and it's got a really good strong stem too. And so you get that going in your vase. And I also have, this is a shrimp plant. It's crazy. Let me grab it. I think it's all hooked in here. I got a lot of this. Yeah. The reason I call it a shrimp plant is because see how it kind of folds down? But this is great at the edge of your vase, so it's hanging over the side. At first it was like, oh, that's kind of weird. Why is it doing that? Well, it's like a shrimp. So you can see these are all the kinds of greens that you would use. And then you start in with your supporting flowers. So you could do any kind of flower, and tonight we're going to have supporting flowers that are tall, spiky, which would be your larkspur, and maybe 1 or 2 of those. And then you have your, which are over there, the snapdragons. They're also a spike, so that you can get a spike going this way, a spike going this way, a tall spike and a shorter spike. And then your supporting flowers are also the yarrow. And so these buckets are all, every bucket like this is for 5 people. You don't have to use all the flowers. So all of these can be supporting flowers, and then you have your focal. These are going to be the focal. The lilies. They're not open. This is the way they're cut, stored, brought in, and then they'll start opening in your home, and they will be huge. I mean, it's going to be like outstanding. Cats shouldn't be around lilies, so pay attention to that. The poppies become like the air. And the air is anything that floats up above. And the poppies could do that. Let me grab one of these. And then this is corn cockle. Comes in white and purple. See how it's more like the air. So these are going to float above. There, you're floating above. And the poppies may not go in your color scheme, but when you put them in very last, you're like, that's why they're called poppies. They make it pop. So there's dianthus, which would be a supporting flower, kind of shorter, a little shorter. And you just start filling it in with some flowers from the side. So I feel like we should probably get started because we're just like antsy to get going. I'm gonna be here, and part of you can go get vase. Part of you can go if you want to work in groups of 5. I don't know how many people. Just know that your group can work with a bucket, and then but get your greens up here. And then that's a bucket. This is a bucket. And this is a bucket. So, yeah. And actually, this is a bucket, but it has some snapdragons in it. See them right here, being all snappy. So these snapdragons, if you don't have snapdragons in your bucket, there's plenty over here. And then, and the straw flowers are right here. And I think they're all loose, so you can just pull out what you want. And then this is native verbena, which if you like, I've got to have a little strike of purple. There it is. And then get your lily. Probably 1 lily is about what you want because they will get big. 1, 2, 3. Go. Wow, look at this. This has been an amazing evening. I'm amazed what you can do. These are spring flowers, and they're some of the best flowers that we can have. Although in Texas we can grow some pretty good flowers in the summer. I would encourage you to always seek out your local flower farmers, and you can find those through the localflower.org. And then also you can follow me on Instagram or website. And thank you, Bootstrap Farmer, for having this wonderful studio and offering this workshop out here in Paris, Texas.